Hi guys, and welcome to Faewood. So we're continuing on with Dan's costume. I'm turning him into the Green Man, hopefully. And we made the shirt in the last section of this project. And I'm going to make this, I keep calling it a jacket, but I guess it's like a vest jacket or a sleeveless jacket. I don't know. I feel like it's a jacket once it gets that long, right? Kept looking at it going, is that a vest or is that a jacket? Know exactly what I'm doing. Not. As I said in my last video, in case you knew, I am a novice sewer. I don't know what I'm doing. I am trying to learn and I'm just sharing all of my experiences with you guys. I feel like for some people in my boat, it might help to have someone who's also, you know, fumbling their way through, explain it from a novice's perspective. Because I know when I watch people who are like very accomplished sewers and they're doing things really quickly and they're throwing out all these terms that I'm sure once you get going, you know exactly what they are. I'm at the point where I have to look up most of the terms on Google and or possibly videos on how to do some of those things as well. And like, I don't necessarily understand what markings mean on a pattern all the time.
As is evident from my last video.
I feel like if I can do it, anyone can do it because, oh my God, I mess up everything. So that's one aspect of it. But also I just think like, it's going to be a fun project. Once we get to the embellishment part, which hopefully we get there, hopefully everything comes together enough that it's all fine and ready for me to do some fun embellishment stuff. That's where I actually know a little bit about what I'm doing, mostly from, you know, doing embroidery beadwork and stuff like that. So that will be coming as well, and I'm still kind of working out how I want to do it, although I am a little bit worried that I'm going to really like it and I won't want to put any embellishments on it. And I know Dan's already really liking this shirt. He's like, oh, just leave it as it is, it's good. And I will share all of that in a later video because I have a lot of stuff that I've sort of been getting that will hopefully help me turn it from, you know, just a regular costume, not regular, I mean it's a very nice costume, but turn it into a Green Man costume. Anyway, before I start rattling off too much information and rambling on blah 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 blah, I guess we better get into it because we still have a fair bit to go, and I'm going to be really careful this time about measurements because, as you would know if you saw the last video with the shirt, the measurements were just, they were way off, and I'm just not trusting the measurements on the pattern anymore. So I'm going to see if I can work out whether the large size for that jacket is actually the size I want. I don't know guys, I've been looking at this, I've been trying to have a look at the pattern pieces. It's a fitted top, this top jacket thing, and looking at the measurements, it's like thinner at the waist, wider at the hip. It says to make it the width of the hip, it seems like you're meant to do, but again, his waist is bigger than his hips. I think I'm just gonna have to go with the big one because as far as I can tell, that's the size. I just feel like I can't trust it though. I'm gonna do it, but like I'm not convinced that this is gonna tell me the right thing because it's saying go by the hip size, and I know I can't do that. I don't know. I wish it told you what to do if the waist is bigger than the hips. I really do. But I'm just going to go with the big size. little check-in with you guys. It's getting towards the end of the day here today, and I haven't had a lot of progress, but then again, I take my time with these things because I don't know what I'm doing and I don't want to mess up the pattern. So anyway, I've been making a whole bunch of like panels for the jacket. It's hard to kind of show you guys what it looks like, but you can kind of see that's where the neck would be. I think this was the back piece. So it's starting to, like, I'm starting to see its shape together. I am finding the challenge at the moment. This is like a, you know, a pleather or whatever. It doesn't iron. All of the seams, it says press the seams out or whatever. And I did try to do that on one bit, but it was starting to melt the fabric. I could always do, like, I could always stitch them open potentially, and I have done that before with this sort of material, so I may end up doing that. I haven't been doing it yet, and I'm not sure if I should maybe start, because it's going to get to a point where I won't be able to if I leave it too much longer, because it'll be too big and cumbersome for me to use it on my sewing machine. I'm going to have to make a decision on that. I might do that, because that might be a pain, unless I just trim it. That's the other option too. I could just like trim it. I don't know. Well guys, I can actually say there's been blood, sweat and tears that have gone into this so far. Oh my god. Alright, so I haven't yet had my finger get caught in my sewing machine until this moment. Oh my god, it was painful. The needle went through my nail. It was very painful. And, you know, look, it was one of those things that was like, it was painful. It was fine. Like, it wasn't too bad. It's just like when you cut yourself, it's that initial like, oh, holy crap. And I was very coy about using the sewing machine after that. I was trying to be so careful, but then I got distracted because this is a difficult fabric to work with. Like, it, you know, you can't iron it because it just melts and goes weird and sticks to the iron and all of that. So the only way I could flatten the seams down was to sew them down, which, holy cow, has been a bit of an ordeal. But yes, anyway, time got away from me. The jacket is sort of looking like I can see the form of the jacket coming together now. It's not yet at a point where like it's joined together where the arm goes, and then it'll look more like a jacket. But I've got all of the lining to go, and I have a feeling, looking at the directions, that all happens before you sew up the arms and it ends up looking like a jacket. It's otherwise going okay, but like, yeah, the material is finicky, and when you run it through the sewing machine, it does seem to damage it somewhat. And I have also, like, lining up these seams, as you can see, didn't go perfectly. It's not terrible, but it's not like, yeah, there's some, you know, it's, oh, that one's alright. Some of them are just a bit mismatchy, you know. So I've done my best. I did really try to line them up. I think, you know, look, if I was looking back, I guess the best way to do it would have been to tack down the pieces first to make sure they were in place, because I feel like sometimes it was moving as I was sewing as well, and maybe just enough to kind of move it out of alignment. So I think that's kind of what did that. But anyway, I'm not going to be working on this for another day or so, but then I will continue on, and we shall hopefully get the lining done and hopefully no more injuries. Righto guys, it's a couple of days later. I have re-bandaged up my injury. I'm being super careful with that sewing machine now. I've actually moved it. I don't know if you can see. I moved it there because I was finding with the amount of fabric that I've got on this thing, I needed more room, obviously. Like, I don't know if you could tell how much room I had behind the sewing machine, but it was like, I don't know, 30 centimeters max. Just because I don't have a lot of surfaces that are like dedicated for a sewing machine to go. Well, I don't have any other surfaces aside from like the table that I move around all the time. So yeah, I think what I'm going to have to do for big projects like this is just shift the sewing machine when I'm ready to use it to the table, because oh my god, so much easier. Like, why have I not done this earlier? And it was Dan that said it to me, and it just didn't occur to me. I don't know why. You know, sometimes you just like, it takes a fresh pair of eyes, you know? Anyway, it's moved here. It worked out pretty good because it was Struggle Town trying to do, like, sew the seams down for this thing. And again, it is so not perfect. It's not bad. I'm pretty proud of like how it's looking so far. Hopefully it all goes smoothly at the end, because we know how these things happen, like, you know, the shirt debacle, and the smocking and all of that. I sort of held it up on Dan. It's hard to show you right now because it's still not quite in the shape because the sleeve at the top hasn't been sewn. But just trust me when I say it looks kind of like a jacket, which is great. I'm happy. And now I'm at the point of doing the lining. So hopefully that goes equally as well though. But lining is a challenging thing. So we shall see. I've got my orange lining pieces all cut. So I'm going to start putting those together and then hopefully attach them together and all of that. And hopefully at the end we have a jacket. Alright, let's go. How do I get anything done with this one? You just want to be on camera, don't you? Well, I've looked at the step for this little seam here a million times and I don't know if I've done it correctly, because I did that and then, let me just show you, and then the next step is saying to stitch these two pieces together, but of course one is shorter than the other. So then I'm like, did I stitch that correctly? It's saying here, and you might hear Fizzy in the background because he is definitely wanting attention a lot today. So there's like this step where you have to sew the seam, and I'm not sure if I'm just meant to stitch along the line or stitch the pieces together. Stitch on lines marked for ease pleat. I mean, I guess I stitch it together, right? Like, when I look at the image, it kind of looks like they're meant to go together, right? Right? But then I can't tell, like, there's no image of the two pieces and why they don't fit. It's at this point where I feel like I'm going to look back on this and go, oh my god, of course that's the way you do it. But at this point, I'm just not sure if I should just keep going. I think I have to, because like I've read this a million times. I keep looking at the images. I can't think that you would just stitch it and not do anything with it. It is a pleat after all. So I think I'm just going to bite the bullet, do it, and then deal with the consequences after. The problem is I don't have any spare lining material. So if I screw this up, I can't cut any other pieces. So I'll have to just try and make the best of a bad situation, if worst case. Anyway, I thought I'd just share that with you guys. I'm going to keep on going and we'll see what happens. Guys, I am so stuck. So stuck. I have literally been reading the same instruction for hours, trying to work out what it means. I've even got to the point where I don't know if you can tell, I started getting my pen out and like marking the pieces they're talking about because I just don't know what they're trying to tell me to do. It's really frustrating. So like, it's telling me to stitch the front and back panel seams. See step 4. Sounds, straightforward by the way I say that, right? But then it's like, you go back to step 4 and you read that and you try and work out what are they trying to say. And that's talking about, stitching the front with the side panels. And I'm like, it can't be stitching the front and the back pieces, because I'm thinking, okay, they mention front and back because they're talking about the front and the back pieces. Makes sense, yeah? And like, you have to kind of refer to their little thing to see what piece is referred to as the front and the back, and then back facing and blah, 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 blah. They've got names for all the pieces, which is fun. I kind of wish they just put the number, honestly. It would just be so much. Personally, I don't know, this is a personal preference. My frustration is obvious right now, but I am so frustrated. I wish it had the piece number because it would just make things so much easier for me personally. But it says stitch the front and the back panels. But the front and the back, like if you stitch those together, you're missing the side pieces. Like it just doesn't make sense. I think it must be talking about stitching the front with the side pieces. It's just, it doesn't say that. I don't know. I wish you guys were here so I could ask anyone who knows what they're doing. I can only assume, reading this over and over again, and I've gone through the whole thing just to make sure. Because, I don't want to just go ahead and go, well, it must be the side pieces, and then have to undo everything at the end because it wasn't. You know what I mean? So I went through all the steps afterwards just to check, do they mention those side pieces? Because so far I haven't used them. The lining side pieces are not used anywhere. So I'm like, well, they must be meaning that, right? Really finding this pattern so frustrating. And it doesn't look like, I don't know, you can't really see it. It's like a one-page thing. These are different languages, so it's just this one list of instructions. And maybe that's the problem. It is super brief. And yes, it refers sometimes to which seam matches with which seam, but I'm not always finding the matching seam. I'll find one piece that says, oh yeah, seam 6. I found that. I'm like, okay, great. Well, that narrows that down. It must be this piece because that's seam 6. But where's the other seam 6 to match that to? I cannot find that anywhere. It's just, it doesn't exist. So I'm like, well then what? I don't know. I don't know. I'm going to go with side pieces. I'm just going to do it how I think because at this point I don't know what they're trying to tell me. So I'm just going to have to kind of make it up. Well, surprise, surprise, guys. I'm stuck again. I'm also not on camera because I am in my dressing gown. Don't judge. We're in lockdown number 6 and I want to be in my dressing gown. So, yeah, there we are. Gosh. Anyway, like, it was all looking like a jacket and I can't even really show you because I've, like, pinned up one side, but I just thought I'd jump on here and share because everything could go horribly wrong from here. I don't know. And yeah, I'm getting to like step number 12 and it's like, oh yeah, stitch basically the front of the jacket with this sort of side seam part that is already attached to the lining, is already attached to the armhole and everything like that. So the only way to kind of attach those two seams is to have it look like a big jumbly mess, which does make me think I may have done a step that I wasn't meant to do, but then who's surprised really, because this does not make sense. Anyway, I was confused, followed the steps that I thought, but now that I'm at this point and I'm like, God, this is nearly impossible. I'm not even sure if I can do what they're asking. It's in this kind of weird, can barely get it, like barely get those two seams together now. I'm like, shit, was I meant to not stitch those two bits together? Is that what the problem is? I don't know. I don't know. And it's funny to me because every time I look at this, I'm like, oh, I'm nearly at the end. But they give you the instructions in so few words that it looks like it's simple, but it's not because they're not elaborating. They're not explaining themselves. So I'm at this point now where I'm just like, well, let me just do whatever I can to make that I think I can do to make it work, which is basically make it up because it's like, it's not working. So that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm like, well, I am stitching the seams they said to stitch together, but like the rest of it, I don't know if that's correct, because like their picture looks all nice and flat. Mine looks like that. So yeah, anyway, that's where we're at. Well, it turns out, guys, hallelujah, I was right towards the end, finally, and it looks like a jacket. Thank God. I really did make up those last few steps though, because I wasn't sure what on earth it was trying to say to me. And I feel like this has come out pretty good, despite all of my struggles. I'd say, like, look, I'm no tailor, obviously. The shoulders probably are a little big for him, and if I knew more about how to do that, I'd make them fit properly. But look, at this point in time, I am just trying to follow a pattern. I am not good enough to alter a pattern. No way. But, yeah, I think, look, overall, I'm pretty happy with how this has come out. And I think I can hide some crimes, as Adam Savage would say, with some embellishments. And hopefully I can turn this into the Green Man. So stay tuned, hit subscribe if you want to see the rest of the costume. There'll be some accessories, there'll be embellishments, there'll be a mask, there's going to be all sorts of things, and then there's my costume as well to come. So thanks for tuning in, guys. I hope you've enjoyed watching me struggle through this pattern. And I'll see you next time in Faewood. Bye, guys.